I just spoke with editor and publisher Greg Mitchell about what is starting to feel like the collapse of the American news industry and about how worried we all ought to be about whether it is still possible for a lot of people, a lot of smart, ambitious, talented Americans to make a living as reporters. No reporters, no accountability. No accountability, no real democracy. Eek. We now pivot from that eek to something that will warm the heart of any real news geek. A really stupendous piece of investigative journalism in today's New York Times. Now here's the context. In February 1906, Upton Sinclair published a book called The Jungle, which he wanted to have the effect of rallying the country to the cause of the poor and mistreated workers in Chicago meatpacking plants. Instead, he rallied the country to the cause of the disgusting stuff that came out of those plants. I will assume you do not want to hear the details of the rat droppings and rat poison and whole poisoned rats in the sausage, let alone what they cooked and bleached and sold as canned chicken. I know for a fact you do not want to hear about what happened when workers fell into the rendering vats. Sinclair said about his book, "I aimed at the public's heart, and by accident I hit it in the stomach." Within 4 months of The Jungle being published, a national Upton Sinclair-induced bout of nausea and outrage led President Theodore Roosevelt to sign the Food and Drug Act. It set up a system of federal inspections for food and drugs, as well as labeling laws. Big business hated it, but it passed. Since every consumer couldn't have perfect information about everything going into the products on sale in America, market forces alone were not enough. Sure, no one would buy rat sausages if they knew that's what they were, but how are folks supposed to know unless there were inspections? So the companies had totally economically rational reasons for maximizing their profits, and that's fine. But in addition to that private interest in profit, there is also a public interest in Americans not eating tasty sausages secretly made out of rats and dead meat packers. Under the Food and Drug Act, the government said, okay, the companies can look after their private interest, but it's the role of the government to look after the public interest. We're going to inspect and regulate and ensure the safety of our food supply. Yum. That basic idea of the government's regulatory role is anathema to the conservative movement.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
That was the whole big basic idea of Reagan conservatism. This darn regulation stuff is impinging on our freedom to unknowingly eat rat sausages.
The right course is the one championed by Ronald Reagan 30 years ago. Take a weed whacker to excessive regulation.
I believe in less government regulation.
Darn regulations. During the Bush administration, the anti-regulation ethos of the conservative movement manifests in part by the number of Food and Drug Administration inspectors being slashed. For good measure, a lobbyist for the cattle industry was installed as the chief of staff at the Agriculture Department. So now we are in a place as a country 103 years after Upton Sinclair's disgusting meatpacking expose, in which our system of ensuring the safety of the nation's food supply appears to no longer be up to the task. I don't have reason to believe that we're back in unknowingly eating rat sausages territory, but, well, April 08, salmonella outbreak from jalapenos. December 07, listeria bacteria in milk products. October 07, salmonella in chicken and turkey pot pies. September 07, E. coli in ground beef. August 07, salmonella in spinach. June 07, E. coli in beef. And of course, there is the Peanut Corporation of America, which shipped out salmonella frosted peanuts for zillions of different food items. So far, 9 people are believed to have been killed. More than 20,000 people have gotten sick. In today's New York Times, Michael Moss and Andrew Martin report that the Peanut Corporation of America plant in Georgia was assessed to have a, quote, superior level of food safety. Superior. That was 9 months into the time when we now know they were shipping out salmonella. Another audit a month later gave the infested plant a 91 out of 100, A-. Remember, this is the plant where the people who worked there say they regularly saw mice and rats and roaches and mold. Who were these geniuses who were certifying the health and safety status of that plant? They were private auditors. Private inspectors? Private? Yeah, hired by the industry. Because without enough government inspectors to do this work anymore, the industry has developed its own private, for-profit, voluntary inspection system to maybe conceivably ensure safety, but at least to give them a big blue ribbon, look, Ma, I passed, that they can point to if they get sued. Says the Times today, quote, with government inspectors overwhelmed by the task of guarding the nation's food supply, the job of monitoring food plants has in large part fallen to an army of private auditors. An examination of the largest food poisoning outbreaks in recent years in products as varied as spinach, pet food, and a children's snack show that auditors failed to detect problems at plants whose contaminated products later sickened customers. So, yeah, maybe it's time to go back 103 years to the part where we had figured out that industry will rightly pursue its private interest, which is both profit and, these days, not getting sued. They will pursue their private interest. But it's the role of the government to look after the public interest. So it's through public means that we're going to make sure that we inspect and regulate and ensure the safety of what we eat. Private inspectors? Feh. Michael Moss and Andrew Martin at the New York Times, keep it up. Somewhere in muckraker heaven, you have just made Upton Sinclair's day.